Let's welcome Manu Bennett. And while we're doing that, Manu, can I ask a favor?
Take my shirt off.
Suspense for a while, but I was going to ask a favor.
I can't believe
Jared just put me on the spot. Jared put me on the spot. Can you teach him a hongi?
A hongi?
Yes.
Okay, I can. I'm going to put the challenge out there. I'm going to do this only if people turn to the person next to them and give them a hongi. But before I do a hongi, which is a welcome or a greeting in Maori, whenever I come to this convention, I always like to acknowledge what in Maori we call tangata whenua, which is the people of the land. And although everybody here is a person of this land, the Ute Nation hold a special place to this area. And I just want to acknowledge the Ute Nation. Beautiful sound. Can I hear that sound again? Oh! That sound has been in this land for a long time. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, so a hongi. So I would like everybody to choose a person that's next to you. Now the hongi is an expression where it's basically about the sharing the breath of life.
How about no?
Don't encourage him.
Wait, do I need to take my shirt? If I need to take my shirt off, I need to get started. It's gonna take me.
You take the shirt off.
No. Okay. You guys are.
But basically, what you do, and I really would like you to do it to the person next to you. If it's a stranger, still do it. It's an interesting exercise.
Get comfortable.
You'll feel why. You'll feel why after you've done it. If you do it properly, you'll acknowledge this spiritual connection that will pass between the two of you. A hongi is when you touch foreheads and the top of your nose, like an Eskimo kiss, right? And when you touch noses, you inhale at the same time through your nose. And it's sharing the breath of life. Some people are fussy. But I'm going to show you how it's done. Okay, so we shake hands like brothers. Put your hand on my shoulder. Now please, go over to the person next to you.
I'm only human. I mean, come on. Look at this guy. Who doesn't like
I want to spread this cultural practice. Try it with the person next to you. You touch noses, and you breathe in at the same time through your nose. You share the breath of life.
You know, this is part of the gig, Dan.
I was trying to say, Jared,
You see it happening. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Here we go.
do we breathe?
You know, I did. Look, when it's not the right thing. When it's not a normal practice for you, it might feel a bit strange. But trust me, as a significant Maori gesture, it holds a lot of meaning. And it's funny because there's all different ways of doing it. Like you go to some funerals and things like that, and people are very sincere about it. You know, and old men will just lightly touch you, and young men will come up and be full of energy, and they'll press really hard and go, you know. So there's all these different expressions that are transmitted through this one act. But it's interesting. It's called a hongi. Now you know.
And one quick second, I want to say that when Manu came our first show 2 years ago, we took him up to the governor's office, and it was pretty impressive to see Manu doing that with the governor. It was we got photos of it and stuff. It was quite a powerful thing.
Absolutely, you know, and that photo was circulated around New Zealand, and you know, when Maori saw it, they thought, wow, our culture's traveling. That's a good thing to do for that reason. But at the end of this, I'm going to teach a few people how to do the haka. We'll come back for that. Thanks, Dan. You staying down there, brother?
Going for one more.
I love that. So thank you.
I got Dan Farr, Jared Phillips. Of course, you know these guys. We get a crowd shot here, so what you guys want to do is get excited here. Are you excited to see Manu Bennett? So we got some fans over here already ready for you. I'm gonna guess. Let's see. Just get a gauge out of here from the audience. Who's here because you like Crixus?
Shall we begin?
What about Slade Wilson, Deathstroke?
Nice to finally see you again, kid.
It's creepy. Every time it's creepy for me. What about Azog the Defiler? They're ready for you, man. You want to answer some questions?
Absolutely. You know, I just want to I haven't thanked Salt Lake City yet as a whole. Thank you very much for having me back for a third time in a row. I believe that the power of Comic-Con, we got to be careful how we use that word. The
courts in our favor.
Yeah, the power of the convention, the power of the Comic-Con is that story unites us all. You know, whether it be the Bible, the Quran, you know, whether it be stories from the Ute Nation that go back to your heritage, whether it be Maori stories, whether it be the stories of your own family. These are the things that unite us, and we find a common thread. And people like Stan Lee discovered modern mythology through comic book stories, you know? And this is why we're here to connect. And, you know, I mean, for me to be an actor and to be involved in story, and to know that somehow I had the opportunity to become an actor and to be involved with many people making shows like Spartacus, or, you know, Arrow, or another trilogy. I mean, to think that I have the opportunity to do that, and that you, all of these people, and I can't believe how many people are in here, have come in here to meet and to connect because of that process. I'm very, very, very humbled by it. Trust me, and I hope that I can be involved in storytelling in the future that will also go through that little box at home or that big screen in the cinema and help you feel, you know, because that's just the most important thing about it. That's what's going to connect us. So thank you for.
People are already waiting here to connect with you. Go ahead, what's your question?
Yeah, hi, my name is Scott, and what can you tell us, if anything, about your upcoming role in the Shannara series?
Well, for anybody who's really interested in Shannara, we're going to have a panel tomorrow that I'll be doing with Terry Brooks, the author. For those of you who don't know anything about Shannara, you know, Terry Brooks has sold 21 million copies of his books, and there's 20 books involved in the Shannara Chronicles. I mean, basically, it's a book that was, you know, brought out about 20 years ago, and so you know, it has quite an interesting demographic because we're going to be pitching it out to people who read it 20 years ago, and they'll all be in their 40s or whatever now, maybe older. And then the show is being made also for a young audience to view as a television show of now. You know, within that series, there's this character called Al-Anon. And I guess I'm Al-Anon now, which is really interesting. You know when I sort of look at Crixus, Slade, so now Al-Anon. Al-Anon's an interesting character. I mean, you know, as a cultural person, and I put this out there to anybody who understands this particular thing about this business, is that to actually get to play the good guy. Finally. You know, so I hope the wisdom of Al-Anon, the way that he helps guide these young elves through this particular world, this fantasy world, you know, that's created the Shannara series. You know, he's like Gandalf, but luckily he's like Gandalf kind of meets Crixus. he's a kind of he's a good fighter, and you know, so I've been able to take some of the stuff that I've involved in my past characters, but I've been able to sort of also harness this new energy of a character that is really trying to teach good, and he's trying to help some young characters, you know, mature to face a very big battle against dark forces. You know, it's a little bit like Lord of the Rings in that way. One of the big challenges for the show is that it wants to look like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, you know, and those shows cost in excess of hundreds of millions of dollars to make. So MTV, who's not even really known for making a lot of, you know, big budget original programming, they're throwing all their chips on the table with this show. You know, it's the one very smart choice they've made is that they've decided to produce this thing in New Zealand. Now what they get are the film crews, the creative potential, the makeup artists, the set designers, the cinematographers that have all been working on Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So, and Spartacus, you know, a lot of the guys that I work with on Spartacus, so it was going, for me it was a wonderful opportunity. I'd actually only just landed after doing Arrow. I'd only just landed in Los Angeles. And I thought, oh, I'm having to face the big American, you know, machine now, you know, the big Hollywood machine. And I went to my first casting for Shannara. And I went in there and I was nervous, you know, felt like I was beginning everything again. You know, I know all the casting agents in Australia and New Zealand, so I felt comfortable when I cast in those countries. But walking into the casting for Shannara in Los Angeles, I was terribly afraid, terribly nervous. And I had this big jacket on, it was a sweltering hot day, and I started to sweat and I was cooking and I felt nervous, and I thought the director hated me. And I walked out and I rang up my manager and I said, there's no way in the world I'm going to get that, I think I just blew that. Then she got a phone call the next morning, she said, Manu, they loved you, they're offering you the role, which I went, where's it shooting? She said, in New Zealand. So,
what are the odds?
Yeah, my first job in America, they sent me home. but you know, for me it was a blessing. I don't know, you know, I mean, whatever you believe in life, whatever you believe the path is going to lead you, I thought this was quite significant that I was sent back to New Zealand, back to my home country, back to work with the people who had helped formulate my career thus far, you know, in New Zealand. So it was a very fortuitous, you know, return to my country to make this show. You know, all I know is that, you know, with this creative potential behind it, it's going to be a new standard for television yet again. When I did Spartacus for Stars, that was a whole new effect for television. Spartacus, you know, they'd never seen, you know, the audiences had never seen that kind of a show on television before. And then when I did Arrow for CW, you know, it helped broaden the demographic for CW, you know, and it's become, you know, their flagship show. And now MTV are making Shannara. I think, you know, they're trying to break out. So it's interesting being involved in shows with networks that are trying to break out with these series and try to raise the bar, especially in terms of technology. So, you know, I'm just very fortuitous to be in another job, have work, pay for my kids and my family, and you know, and get the opportunity to keep on being an actor for you people. So you know, when it comes out in January, I just hope, you know, you're going to embrace it. And you know, it's funny because some people say to me that when I ended up on Arrow, they said, oh man, I was watching Arrow, then I went, that's Crixus! You know? And now I guess when I'm in Al-Anon, they're going to go like, that's Slade! But, you know, the progression, the evolution continues, and thank you very much. If it wasn't for your support, I don't think these studios would be selecting me. It's only because I've got your audience, you as an audience behind me, that I think I get these opportunities, because they know that I can go from one to the other. So thank you for coming.
Have you guys seen the YouTube trailer for Shannara Chronicles yet? Alright, so you got a flavor for what it's like. We got a next question right here. Go ahead.
Will Slade Wilson be recruited by Amanda Waller for the Suicide Squad and Arrow?
Ooh, you know what? It's a great plot. It's an incredible plot. The sad thing about it is that Warner Brothers have separated the Suicide Squad from Arrow Television, the television show. You know, they did it because they wanted to obviously build up the film that's coming out of the Suicide Squad. So at the present time, that storyline can't happen because of Warner Brothers sort of saying, look, you can't use Deadshot. You can't use, you know, the Deadshot character got taken from the show. Yeah, they've set a couple of rules for the Arrow TV show going forward. I'm just wondering when they're going to let that guy out of prison on the island of Lian-Yu. How many people are going to die, Mr. Queen?
That's a good one. That's a thinker. What's your question?
My name's Galen. Welcome back. Thanks for always coming.
Thank you, buddy.
And kind of following that, I was like, yeah, I was wondering, I'm hoping, do you maybe foresee Deathstroke being let out soon and maybe playing a more predominant role in season 4 coming up?
You know, I can't comment on it in terms of knowing, but you know, I think the fans are expressing themselves, you know, pretty wholeheartedly about wanting to see Slade and Deathstroke back on the storyline.
You won't tell anybody about it.
I mean, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, under pressure, people have to eventually bow. So you know, I think, you know, it's you know, it's maybe, you know, it's, you know, there's been discussions. So, you know, but I can't tell you.
It's right there. Go ahead.
So, I'm Joe, by the way. Last time you were here, you told us you read all the comics as soon as you know that you were Deathstroke in the show. Do you feel like you relate a lot to Deathstroke now that you've played him, you've read a lot about him? You feel like some of his aspects are part of you now as well?
Well, you know, the thing is that the comic books are very different from the television series, you know. Not extremely different, but they are different. You know, like for instance, you know, the story of Shadow, you know, on the television show, and that being the reason why, you know, Arrow and Deathstroke fell apart. You know, the Mirakuru storyline slightly altered a bit as well. So you know, there's definitely some an original take on the television show in comparison to the comic books. I've always wanted to keep him as indestructible as possible, you know. And season 3, just one episode in there, you know, we kind of came on and disappeared again. So, you know, I just hope, you know, that the ongoing process will always be with great respect to Marv Wolfman's, you know, Deathstroke, you know, who took down the League of, not the League of the, what was it, help me out here. Yeah.
That one, yeah.
Yeah, that one. And you know, he had a great battle with Batman as well. So I mean, you know, if we can keep Deathstroke sort of, you know, at that level, you know, he's always going to be a great nemesis. Yeah.
Is there a character that you relate to more than the others?
Oh, do you mean in the show?
Well, you have obviously Deathstroke with Slade, you have Crixus, you've got Azog, and of course the new character that you've filmed we haven't seen yet. Among those, is there one that you relate to more than the others?
You know, I mean, for me, Crixus was. You know, I got into acting. I got into acting because I needed to express myself. You know, when I was 15 years old, you know, my mother and my brother were both killed in 2 different car accidents. And as a young kid, I didn't know how to deal with that, and I didn't have much help dealing with it. And my girlfriend at the time was a ballet dancer. She got me into ballet, and I found dancing was an incredible way to release the energies that were going through my body. You know, I also played rugby. I mean, these 2 things kind of helped me address physical and emotional needs that were just, you know, rushing through my body because of this loss. You know, through my 20s, I sort of struggled to get my feet on the ground, to become a grounded actor, to become somebody with focus, who had the necessary, you know, discipline to be good at this industry. Because you have to be disciplined to survive in this industry. You know, you do have to be that. And then, you know, finally, once I found I'd centered myself, Spartacus came along. And then I got these scripts for Crixus. And that guy's journey, I mean, you know, the way that it was written by Stephen DeKnight, it had an arc that took me as an individual, as a person, as an actor wanting to express myself. You know, I mean, there was so much pain and suffering and so much you had to fight for. And then there was even just, you know, even fighting for the emotional touch, the reconnection with a woman, you know, through the bars, you know, Navia, just finger to finger through the cell bars, you know, and all of it being stripped away constantly again and again and again until finally they found their release, you know, and they escaped. And then, you know, then came the new Crixus, who wasn't yelling out, "Shall I begin?" Finally, he yelled out, "Shall we begin?" That was a huge step. Even in my acknowledging where I was going as a person behind the veil of this character, you know. So yeah, I mean, the full arc of that character was just so significant to me personally that, you know, I mean, Slade Wilson, Deathstroke has had some amazing moments, but the arc is only partway complete, you know. I've sort of been waiting to sort of, you know, see where that journey goes with that character. Azog was like really such a last-minute decision for Peter Jackson. It was originally a 7-foot actor had played Azog in the film and had done all the action and acted all the scenes. And Peter had gotten into, in post-production and decided that it just didn't work. I mean, there's sort of a little bit like, you know, David Proust, you know, did Darth Vader. But at the end, Lucas went, the voice isn't working, because he had this kind of Welsh accent, and it was kind of like, take the princess to the Death Star or something. It didn't have the gravitas. So they got James Earl Jones in to go, take the princess to, you know, this was the deeper, stronger voice. So, but I think in this instance, you know, Peter, you know, just wanted to extract the whole performance. And to do that, he then called me in to do what Andy Serkis had done with Gollum, and that was to create a motion capture character. And for Andy Serkis, I mean, you know, have you ever seen the suit you've got to wear for motion capture? It's like a leotard. And I don't know how many men out there feel very competent in a leotard. I mean, Spider-Man is pretty good.
That's a start, that's for sure.
But you know, here I was having to wear this suit, and I could see how Andy could get in the suit and fall over and go, my precious. You know, but I came out in this thing and I looked like a Christmas stocking. Seriously, and I had to play this big character. And then they had a screen up on the wall that looked a bit like that, you know, and it had a picture of Azog, like a semi-rendered version of what he'd look like. But it was like a very cheap video game version of it. And I would look at it and I'd move around in this suit and I'd watch him and I'd be trying to work out his walking style. You know, but if I walked normally, he was so big, this image was so big that if I walked normally, he'd sort of just go like this. And and then I realized that I actually had to walk like this. I had to sort of go, Oba, Oba, and I had to make these bigger gestures with my body. And it was just a way of actually adapting, you know, and becoming this creature. The night before going in, I watched Jaws. Yeah, I did. And the way that I played Azog is I always tried to keep him flanking away from the camera. You know, like the opening scene, I was sort of back to camera, and these orcs came in and were saying, oh, they escaped your master and whatnot. And I kind of just looked over my shoulder a little bit. And then I turned around and I came down these stairs, but I kept my head down and I asked Peter, can we put one of those wargs over here so I can pat its head? And I just wanted to keep the audience distance from the anger and the you know, like jaws just sort of coming towards them. It's like a do. But you know, it's not until the jaws open that you get the big wow. So I'd always sort of try to keep Azog down and then, you know, then bring him out. But you know, the process was amazing. You know, the process really was amazing. And then, you know, I mean, who wouldn't want to work for Peter Jackson? It was an incredible opportunity. But there was only like 3 days. I would finish a movie in my part of the movie in like 3 days. You know, and of course, it had all been filmed, and I never met any of the actors until the premieres. You know, it was funny walking up to Richard Armitage, because I walked up and I went, "Hey mate," he was like, "Who are you?" I didn't look like Azog. You know? He's looking at him, and I played Azog, mate. He was like, oh, really? He was quite surprised, just looking at me, thinking that I was that particular character.
I don't mean to pull a Kanye West here on you, but we got about 10 minutes left for everyone to answer questions, because we got to get Manu off to the next thing here, so go ahead.
How's it going?
How you doing? Good.
Good. I just want to ask, was it difficult to differentiate between the roles in Spartacus and Pharaoh since they were so similar?
That's an interesting question, darling. It's a really good one because really they were both kind of, you know, warrior sort of roles, and you know, I mean, the thing about Arrow was that he was a mentor, you know, to Oliver, you know, and then that all sort of caved in. You know, and it was kind of the reverse to Spartacus, where I started off as the antagonist and I became a protagonist. And in Arrow, I started off as a protagonist and then I became an antagonist. So it was sort of a reversal of that. You know, it's funny because Arrow threw a couple of lines in along the way that were kind of like, I like swords. you know, and it was a real throwback on Crixus. And then there was another time where I looked at Oliver as we were sort of leaving the island, and I said, you know, when we first arrived on this island, it was as strangers, but now it's as brothers. I remember that line was just so much like, you know, when I was hitting Andy Whitfield and, you know, Andy. Yeah. I'm saying brothers, that word, but you know, I think they've had a play with that, you know. I mean, Arrow, with this there's now 5 or 4 Spartacus actors that have been on the show, so I think they're having a bit of fun with that. But you know, look, I mean, really, you know, I'm brought in to play these sort of, you know, quite tumultuous, emotional storylines. And as I explained about my life, you know, I kind of understand pain, darling, you know, and I understand loss. You know, I've been lying on a road, you know, these scars on my face were when I was thrown out of the vehicle that my mother was killed in. And, you know, I remember lying on the road, feeling like I was about to die, and I didn't wake up until 2 weeks later in intensive care. You know, I was in intensive care in hospital. But when I woke up, this is one of the things that I based Spartacus on. When I woke up in the hospital from being in a coma for 2 weeks after this car accident, the person next to me in the hospital, the person next to my bed in hospital, was my worst enemy in high school. A guy called Matthew Sisley. We hated each other. He had like this mullet haircut and would drive around in this little red car. And we called him a Westie. He was a real Westie. He was an aggressive young guy. You know, he was a really aggressive young guy. I did break dancing and ballet and put gel in my hair and wore fashion. So him and I were 2 different dogs completely. You know, the way that we presented ourselves to the world. And at that time, I didn't have a problem in my life. And I didn't know what his problem was that made him so angry toward me. Well, so I wake up, and my mother's now passed away. I got a big bandage across my face and stitches, and I'm barely alive, just made it. And here's my worst enemy standing next to my bed. And he came over and he went, "You okay? You okay?" You know, emotional. Just okay. Him and I became best friends. It ended up that when he was young, his mother had died when he was young. And suddenly, I realized who this guy was and who I'd become and how we were connected by one story, one event in our lives was the same. And I ended up being his best man at his wedding and all this sort of stuff. But when I read about the character of Crixus and Spartacus, and I knew that the arc would end up with them being friends, I based it upon myself and Matthew Sisley that I went to high school with. It was honestly the absolute way that I pitched that character. And when I went up to Spartacus in the bathhouse, and I was like, you little, you know, Thracian, you know, your wife's been by 1,000 Roman, you know, some pretty foul language. But I was in his face. I was really just playing these confrontations that I had with Matthew Sisley at the bus stop at our high school. With more vulgar language and sort of more manly ferocity. But as a young kid, that's exactly how I remembered the exchanges that we had.
So next time we see that, that's what we'll see. Love that.
Yeah.
We got about 5 minutes left. Go ahead.
All right, I wanted to know if, while you were on the set of Arrow, if you ever conquered the salmon ladder, and if not, if you ever want to.
No. It's funny. I've been asked that question, but I never did the salmon ladder. No, I never tried it. No, I just, no, it was never presented to me as an opportunity. No, darling. That's the answer. Thanks.
Should we go rapid fire here? See how much we can fit in the last 5 minutes? Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask what it was like growing up in New Zealand and Australia.
Well, it was like, part of me is Maori, and I never knew that part of my cultural heritage as I grew up in Australia. And being in Australia, they didn't quite know what to make of me. In Australia, they've got their own indigenous culture called Aboriginals, and who are not really called Aboriginals. Aboriginals is a term. They're actually like the Native Americans here. There's like vast nations of different groups all over Australia, all with their own languages and whatnot like that. But as I grew up, I was just kind of a strange, brown kid. And I didn't know how to relate to being a brown kid. As a matter of fact, I was born Jonathan Manu Bennett. My first name was Jonathan. I grew up being called John. I was embarrassed about my name, Manu. As a kid, I used to never tell anybody, because when I was in primary school, somebody had said it, and all the kids used to walk around. You remember Mork and Mindy? Remember Nanu Nanu? Well, when I was a kid, these school kids found out my middle name and they go, Manu, Manu, Manu. And I remember as a little kid, I cried. I was like, ooh, and so I never wanted to be known as Manu. But then later on, when I did make my way back to New Zealand as an adult, I met my uncle who I was named after, who became the Bishop of New Zealand. When he became the Bishop of New Zealand, his name had been Horatio Manu Bennett. And he'd basically told me that for 3 generations after settlement of the colonials in New Zealand, Maori were not allowed to name their children with Maori names. So Maori would give their children a Maori middle name. When my uncle became the bishop, he said, I'm going to be known as Bishop Manu Bennett, rather than Bishop Horatio Bennett, because he wanted to acknowledge his culture. And he told me that when he was actually dying of cancer, and he passed away a couple of weeks later. But I saw him in the hospital, and I said to him, Uncle, you know what, I've been embarrassed about this name, but I need to own this name now. Can I do what you did and own this name? And he said, yeah, go do it. So I did it by default, and I became Manu Bennett to represent my culture.
That's the actor you know and love today. I hate to say it, but the time is up. Do you have time for Captain America before we go?
Oh, yeah.
All right, Captain America. Go ahead, buddy.
So when you filmed The Hobbit, I was wondering if you had a chance to film any other guy, who would you play?
If I what, sorry, can you ask that one more time?
If you had a chance to play any other guy.
Any other guy in The Hobbit? No, I love Deathstroke. No, I love Deathstroke. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Captain America.
I love Deathstroke.
And thanks for everybody here showing up for Manu Bennett, everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll say one more time. Story is what connects us. It's really important. I mean, it's almost as like sometimes the entertainment industry seems to be a fictitious arena, but it's so important, and I just hope, I hope I can keep on bringing Next with Alan on some feeling through that screen so that I can stay connected with you all. I wish I could say hello to each and every one of you individually. If I get a chance downstairs, I will.